Morning. I ran away with the circus, chapter 5, I believe. Dear Rob and Jeff. So, I survived 6 grades of Catholic school in Riverhead with an hour ride bus trip in the morning and an hour bus trip back in the afternoon. And you're looking out that bus window for hours and hours and hours. Turned me into the deep thinker that I am today. And a lot of stories of the school, the nuns. Um, in sixth grade, by sixth grade, the bus would drop us off in the freezing cold, all winter in the school parking lot. It was freezing, and by the time I was in sixth grade, I was big enough to realize that I could climb up on the railing by the door because the doors were locked until the old Polish janitor came and opened them. But if I climbed up on the railing, I could scale like Spider-Man to the window, open a classroom window, climb in, come around down the stairs, and open the door for everybody. I was the hero, not knowing that the nuns were watching this from their convent windows across the parking lot. So after many trips to the principal's office in sixth grade, her name was Stack, Sister Ildefonse. Um, I don't know where the name Stack came from, but she was a handful. And she told me, go in the nurse's office, sit here, and write your behavior. Because I just got busted for something. And I didn't understand the assignment. Write my behavior, starting when, covering what, and what. I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. So she leaves me in the office, and I should have written, I don't know why I do the things I do, because I got up and I left and I snuck out of the school and I was walking the streets, Pulaski Boulevard of Riverhead, at, I don't know, 10 years old, 11 years old, whenever I was in sixth grade. And I'm walking. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know why I was doing it. I couldn't deal with the assignment. I was in trouble and I was on the road. And the principal, a heavy-set old lady with red hazel-like hair, drove by in her car. I guess she went out to find me. And she says, you better come back. And so I got in her car with the weird smelling perfume and the weird old Falcon, whatever wacko car it was. And she took me back to the school. And that was a big deal. That Harry got a call on that. And that was not good. And surprisingly, they asked me not to come back the next year, I think, whatever. So I was out of there. I got to go to Selden Junior High the next year. That's where that's where the long hair came in, and that tie soon came off and went around my head as a headband. And Selden Junior High, I met all the people in my neighborhood that I didn't even, from further away neighborhoods that I didn't even know existed because I was bussed out to Riverhead every day for 6 years. Um, so I was having a ball. I walked to Selden Junior High 1,000 times. I was a walker and met all the boys. Gomez, Spider, Larry, Loosh, the Moops, Bobby G, Dano. The old neighborhood had 100 kids, but these schools had hundreds and hundreds of kids. And so I ran Selden Junior High. Larry Ortez used to call me the Fonz. And I was bigger than most kids, so that had its advantages and disadvantages. And then I was 16. Dad came home and said, I got a job for you. I hadn't even thought about getting a job, and I was the best dishwasher at Pancake Cottage in Center Reach ever had. And so, how I went from being 16, 17, there was really no pictures, but 17 is when I ran away with the circus. How did I run away with the circus? It all started with a psst at my bedroom window at 35 Henry, and it was Joey Pistols. And out the window I went while my parents and family slept. I went in and out that window more than the door after a while. So I go out the window with pistols, and there's a weird looking Volkswagen sitting on the side of the house on Newtown Avenue with a mark, meaning a victim, named Mark, coincidentally, in the car. And Joey's like, you got to get a load of this guy. I says, oh, here we go. So we get in the car, and Mark Ruggles is the manager of Bob Jones Animal Attractions Petting Zoo that's at the Smith Haven Mall for 2 weeks, which is a sideshow attraction place, kiddie rides place out of Atlantic City and Philadelphia. And Mark is in town, staying at the motel at the corner of Jericho and Wisconsin Highway that used to be there by a diner. There was a motel up by the Smith Haven Mall. And Mark was staying there while he managed the petting zoo and the kiddie rides that were at the Smith Haven Mall, which was just amazing. Mark was a cross between Tim Curry and Richard Simmons. More like Richard Simmons. Mark was openly gay. He had a New Jersey, southern New Jersey drawl weirdo thing that I experienced with other southern New Jerseyans soon after that. And oh, he was a character, and he just wanted to party, Mark. And Joey was playing him along, and yeah, we're gonna go party. And I'm sure Joey had his eyes on the cash box of the petting zoo from moment one. And so we went out with Mark, and we had a few drinks at the dive bar called Jack's, Jax, on Portion Road and Holbrook Road. And Mark was happy just to be out drinking, and I realized why soon after I joined his workforce and was living like that from town to town. And you're lucky if you go out and have a good time at all. So Mark is happy to be out. Joey's happy to be playing Mark along, and I'm just whatever. And I'm telling, and I guess Mark was always looking for workers everywhere he went for the rides and the petting zoo. So he says, you want to come down? And Joey wasn't going to break a sweat. So I says, yeah, I'll give it a try. So we didn't roll him that night, but I got the job and went down to the mall where I had hung out before, and there was all mallies, we called them, kids that hung out in the mall all times. There was a kid named Roy there that could imitate the guards' radio, like he'd have the guards turning around, reaching for their radios. It was so funny. And he was a mallie. There was about 10 or 12 or 15 of them that were in the mall every day. That was a whole society. And which I knew and then got to experience working there. And I worked from, eventually it was from 9:30 when the mall opened till 9:30 when the mall closed. And so I'm working with Mark at the petting zoo, and I even got my brothers and sisters jobs there, and the goats started having babies, and they were naming goats Gerard and Peter and Doreen, and it was a whole new world. And Pistols was just sharking the perimeters, if you will. And what a time that was. On the merry-go-round, I was the expert at getting kids to stop crying. I figured it out quickly because you just buckled up 20 kids. There's a line, the parents are annoyed, and you get the ride going and a kid starts crying. What do you do? So I quickly learned to hop on the ride on and off like Tarzan. And I would go up to the child and say, "Oh, do you want to stop?" And they would say, "Yeah." I would say, "Okay, you have to stop crying before I can stop." And they would immediately stop crying, and then they would realize it's not so bad. And it was, my little trick. And there was an orange Julius right next to the merry-go-round, which was great. And my friends would come up, and I'd see everybody at the mall, and I was making money, and I did more and more, and then I was doing everything in the petting zoo, and slinging around 100-pound feed bags and hay bales and goats and bulls, and it was great. And so they liked me, and I met a whole bunch of weird characters that worked for Mark. A couple of them were from Atlantic City, New Jersey, Pleasantville, which is 7 miles outside, I told you. Um, and they had the weird southern drawl, and they were kind of ornery, a little bit harmless. They thought they were ornery, but they weren't. And cranky old guy named Jack, and a young guy named Stevie Marshall, a few years older than me, big barrel-chested farm boy, southern drawl, kind of do everything by the book kind of guy, and he could drive a truck like anybody's business. And he was a cowboy, but he was a suburban cowboy, and but he'd been on that horse farm where Bob Jones kept his horses, and that's how we got into Bob Jones, and he's been with them since the beginning, and I learned everything I could from this guy. And it was he and I that went on the road to Canada with the world's largest horse show, with the world's largest horse in the back of the truck. But I had been doing critters in a trailer with the petting zoo for a year before that, or a few months before that. And so we're working the petting zoo in the mall with the rides. And we used to have to back the ride trucks up like a tractor trailer, through the mall. You'd had an inch on each side, backing up a huge kiddie ride through the mall. It was crazy, but I enjoyed it. I was good at it, and so. But before that happened, I was working at the petting zoo, and the kiddie rides with Mark, and then they went away, and then they were going to come back in a few months or something. It was seasonal. And I don't know how I ended up. Oh, yeah, I do. Pistols. So me and Pistols got caught in the middle of something that we shouldn't have been doing, and had to run on foot, if you will, as you usually run. And uh, they seized my father's car because we had to run from it. And so I was kind of screwed. So I was on the corner of Ruin and Henry with my two accomplices, and we were all arguing because we knew the cops were coming to my dad's house. What was I going to do? They had his car. So we went to that said motel at Betts and Jericho, Wisconsin Highway, Sunset, I think, motel, and we got a room with ill-gotten cash, and I couldn't go home. I was 17 and I couldn't go home. Way to go, Bob. So the next day, we were walking around the Smith Haven Mall because what are you going to do? I should have been in school. And we walked past the travel agent and we saw a sign for Florida. And one of us said, me, Kevin Nord, and Pistols. One of us said, let's go. Kevin Nord had nothing to do with it. He was just hanging out with us. But I love Kevin Nord and his brother Ronnie. Love my boys, love their kids. Their kids love my kids. It's beautiful. Stay close to your childhood friends forever. Where was I? So he says, let's go to Florida on the lam. So Kevin went home. I think he had his car and he got a bag of clothes or one other change of clothes and told his dad, who was really cool, going to Florida, Pops. All right, be careful, men. He used to call us men when we were like 16, 17. That was cool. Mr. Nord, loved him. Pops. So we take a train, the three of us, to New York City to catch a bus, nightmare, to go to Florida to escape. And Pistols goes up to the counter and says, 2 tickets to one way to Florida. And I said, 2? Bro, there's 3 of us. He's like, oh, I can't leave my girlfriend. I think I popped him right then. Way to go, Pistols. So I actually walked out of Port Authority pissed off, and it's snowing, and I'm like, where the hell am I going? I didn't have a car. I didn't have my wallet that was in my dad's seized car. Way to go, Bob. And I'm walking in the snow in Manhattan, not even knowing where I'm going. I'm like, oh, fuck it. I might as well go to Florida with Kevin. So I turn around, I go back in, I fake punch, Pistols, so he curls up in a ball like a girl and give me my fucking tickets. So we get our tickets, and the great Kevin Nord, who's now a commercial airline pilot, go figure. The great Kevin Nord and Bobby Aratakis get on a bus and are heading to Florida at 17, and he might have been almost 18. And what a horrendous bus trip. I couldn't sleep sitting up in those days. I had an old man hacking his lungs out next to me the whole time. Belly acid food at these nasty truck bus stops at night. And horrible 2-day bus trip to Florida. Thanks, Pistols. We get off the bus in Florida. Silly Northerners, amazed at how hot is it. We throw our coats out and we start hitchhiking. And you'll see what happens, chapter 6. Peace. Love.